Hey everyone, Sarah Baccaro. This video today is going to be for you if you have a mean mother, or if you have a mean mom, or if you have a mom who, when you were growing up, always put you down, always yelled at you, always called you names, always belittled you, always made you feel like nothing you ever did was good enough, always told you horrible things about yourself, even when you thought those were the good things about yourself, like the way that you tried to do your best at everything and it never measured up to your mother's standards. This video is going to highlight signs that your mother is toxic and that you may have an unhealthy mother-daughter relationship or mother-son relationship if you're a man or male watching this. And even if the other parent, even if you grew up in a household with both parents and the other parent loved you and told you often how much they loved you and did things for you and sacrificed for you and made you feel and know that they truly did love you. But perhaps the other parent, the mother in this case, was a narcissist. And this does go both ways. So this can be a video that will still help you if the roles were reversed and your mother was very loving and your father was narcissistic. And we're going to go into sharing 11 different things that you can do to begin healing yourself right now. But again, that's advice. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I am not an advocate of advice because it often doesn't work because it doesn't connect with your unconscious beliefs that you have about yourself, particularly when you were raised by a narcissistic parent, because the beliefs that you have that have become embedded in your unconscious mind will negate the advice that you're given. So there is a lot of advice out there. This video will highlight 11 things that you can do, but the most important thing that you can do is work on changing your beliefs at the unconscious level. That is where they reside, because until you do that, all the advice in the world is only going to help get you so far. And it's going to feel like a lot of effort. And you've already struggled. You've already been through a lot if you were raised by a narcissistic mother or have a narcissistic parent. And all of your efforts that you've already put in when you were being raised were unmet and were not seen as valid, were not appreciated, and we're not reciprocated as being something that's good. So now putting more energy, time, effort, and work into something feels pointless, and it feels like it's going to be helpless. What's the point is probably what your mind says and what the thoughts that you have indicate. So again, this video will go over 11 tips that you can implement, advice that will help you along your healing journey. But the number one thing that you can do, with the best, most important thing you can do for yourself, is to reprogram, rewire those beliefs at the unconscious level. Consciously, you're very, very limited on how you can do that. You've probably done that when you watch videos like this and read books and listen to podcasts. And it does help for a little bit, helps for a time, but then that goes away. So with that said, we will dive into this video. You can find out more about transformational healing and doing the unconscious work to heal if you were raised by a narcissistic mother or by a narcissistic parent. You can find links to that in the description below this video. But if you have a narcissistic mother, if you have a narcissistic father and you're looking for advice and things to do and where to begin healing yourself right now from that, you're probably just scratching your head and wondering. The first thing that you can do is educate yourself about narcissism. That is the first step that I took on my journey to healing. And it came with identifying that I had a narcissistic partner and connecting it back to my childhood. So that may be the first indication for you. You may not even be aware that you had a narcissistic parent at this point, but you're aware that maybe you have a narcissistic partner. And when you begin educating yourself about narcissism, you begin making the connections and thinking, wait a minute, my partner is a lot like this parent. And that is not coincidental. That is not by accident. Unfortunately, that's by design, because the mind likes what is familiar. And those toxic narcissistic traits and patterns in that person become familiar to you. So oftentimes, if you have a narcissistic parent, you end up choosing a narcissistic partner. But that is one of the first steps that you can do to begin healing yourself right now, is to educate yourself about narcissism. When you join forums and you read about it and you learn about it, you begin going, oh, no wonder, that makes sense. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. So when you begin diving into that, then you begin to feel more supported, more understood, and less alone. So I do want to say that's a great place to start, but don't stay there too long, because all of that is an indication that there are things within you that are unhealed, that are unprocessed, traumas that are unhealed and unprocessed because of those past experiences, because of that narcissistic relationship, because of that narcissistic and toxic mother or father. So that's the first step you can do. The second step is accept. Awareness and acceptance. Those are the first two steps in any stage to healing. Awareness that you had a narcissistic partner and more than likely a narcissistic parent, and then acceptance, accepting that they will not change, accepting that that parent will not change. I work with a lot of people who have an older parent who are on their later years. And with that, they're carrying the weight and the burden and the heaviness of tons and tons of guilt because they just want that narcissistic parent to accept them for who they are and love them and see them for who they are. And that more than likely will not happen. And so if you are not able to accept that this narcissistic person or parent, partner in some cases, won't change, then you're going to stay stuck in that cycle of trying to get them to change because you're trying to get love. And it's actually not their love that you're trying to get, it's your own love. And you are pouring yourself and your love and your energy and your time into that person to get yourself to feel, know, and believe that you are loved, but you're giving it to someone and something outside of yourself, a parent, because that's our first relationship when we come into this world. That is our foundational relationship. And if you grew up believing, knowing, and feeling that that person didn't love you, of course, that doesn't feel good. And of course, you don't want to accept that you're unlovable. And so we will spend our entire life chasing that and trying to change it. But that is one of the dynamics of a narcissistic relationship. It is not your fault that that person is that way. It is not your fault that they said those things. It is not your fault that they behaved in that way towards you. They were projecting their own inner traumas, their own inner unhealed wounds onto you, onto others, onto other and everyone else in their life. And so way, shape, or form. The way that they projected it onto you may look and feel different than the way that they projected it onto another sibling or another person. So you may think, well, they don't treat that person that way, so maybe they're not the narcissist. Maybe it is me. Maybe it really is that I'm not good enough, that I don't do anything right, that there's something wrong with me. But those are all beliefs, and those are all beliefs that are stored and housed in your unconscious mind, and that's what needs changing. You cannot change a narcissistic parent. You cannot change a narcissistic person, and you cannot and will not change until you accept that truth. So that's the second step of healing. And then if you did have another parent involved in that, and it doesn't have to be your biological parent, it can be, a grandparent, it can be a partner, it can be a step parent. But oftentimes in the dynamic of a narcissistic relationship, there is the narcissist and there is an enabler. So recognizing the other person's role in that, because generally speaking, not all the time, but generally speaking, there was an enabler and then there was a narcissist and then there was you. And you were the one that was kind of stuck, and that's called triangulation. So if you had a narcissistic parent, chances are you had an enabling one as well. And there's processing around anger and grief and resentment, not only towards that narcissistic parent and all the things you wanted them to give you and desired for them to give you and they never could give you, but also the same goes for the enabling parent. You have grief and you have anger and you have resentments and frustrations towards them. It's more than likely not as clear or as obvious, because the obvious person that you are feeling all those things towards is the narcissist. But when you dive deeper into your journey to healing, then you realize, wow, I also have these feelings towards this enabling parent. I didn't know that because they were the ones that did love me. They were the ones that did step up to the plate and did take care of me and did provide for me and did come in and cuddle and comfort me when that narcissistic parent was being narcissistic-y or whatever that word is. But recognizing the enabling part party or partner or parent, they had a play in this as well. They also had a role in this as well. And so part of your healing and your journey and processing that is with that person as well. And they may be the person that you look up to and you admire and you adore and really, really did. Thank goodness they were there for you, because if they weren't, how much worse would it have been? But there is going to be processing around that, awareness and recognition around that as well. And then also the next step is recognizing the other roles in your family. Were you the scapegoat, or were you the golden child? Even the golden child, they have a narcissistic parent, but they have a different experience with that narcissistic parent, because that narcissistic parent treats the golden child differently than they treat the scapegoat child. And on many, many levels, you feel betrayed by them, you feel alienated from them, you feel separate from them, you feel disconnected from your other siblings, from your parents, specifically from that narcissistic parent. You feel like you were just under constant watch and constant pressure from them, and this completely warped family dynamic and system and structure, which ends up being one that oftentimes you relive and you replay in your adult life and in the relationships that you choose as an adult. You may swing the opposite way and say, I'm not going to parent like that. I'm going to parent the complete opposite of that. Or you often end up falling into the role of how you were parented and then hate that you treat your own children the way that you were treated. And remember saying, I'm never going to do that to my kids when I'm older. But there's this ebb and flow, and it's like a pendulum that swings. So oftentimes you go to one side or the other, especially when you were raised with a narcissistic parent, because you learn to try and shut down that abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental abuse, the spiritual abuse. You tried to shut it down. And oftentimes when you tried, you failed. And so you repeated that over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it seemed like nothing you did would ever change it, would ever alter the course. And oftentimes you get stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. And then that's the mode that you're living the rest of your life through. And it impacts every area of your life. It impacts the jobs that you have, the opportunities that you take or to hold yourself back from taking, whether you become a perfectionist or whether you just procrastinate on everything, or whether you self-sabotage, whether you emotionally eat now or drink now, or just are stuck in fear, and you are single the rest of your life because you think, well, I'm never going to get married because look at my parents' marriage. I'm not signing up for that. But you really, truly deep down desire to have a family and a relationship. And you identify this in the patterns and the people that you choose to date. It affects everything in your life when you're raised by a mother who you feel like doesn't love you, or a father who you feel like doesn't accept you, and you're not good enough for them, regardless of what you try to do. So the fifth thing that you need to do is assert boundaries. And that's not only with other people. Boundaries begin with yourself, asserting boundaries within yourself, saying no to yourself. That's probably the most common thing that people hear when they hear the word boundaries is, well, saying no. I can't say no. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a fixer. I'm an empath. I'm a codependent. I can't say no. That is a step that you need to take, right? And your mind learns by repetition. If you grew up with a narcissistic mother or father or parent, you believe now that you're hopeless, helpless, and worthless because you repeatedly heard that. You repeatedly heard, what is wrong with you? Why do you do that? I don't understand you. My God, can't you do anything right? You are a disgrace to this family. I can't believe this. What sin did I have that made me have you and have to put up with you? You repeatedly heard these things. You repeatedly had those same feelings. You repeatedly had those experiences that left you feeling that way and left you believing those horrible lies about yourself as truths. So with that, it became really difficult to say no because you constantly had to say yes so that you could try to please them to get the love, the admiration, and the praise that you wanted when you were growing up that you never got. And so you constantly had to say yes. And so now saying no, it's launches you back into that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, and fear sets in, and you think, well, I can't say no because if I say no, then I'll get punished. I could never say no to my mother growing up. I had to do everything that she told me to do when she told me to do it. And if I didn't, my God, things would get so much worse. So learning to assert boundaries with yourself and taking it slow and steady. It's not a race, but then implementing boundaries with other people too. But At the unconscious core and root level of that is this feeling that you have to feel safe. You need to feel safe to set boundaries. Otherwise, you won't set them. You'll say, no, I need to set boundaries. I know that it's a good idea. And I know that my life would be better if I could and if I did. But if you don't feel safe to set boundaries because your unconscious mind says, don't you dare do that because you're going to be punished and things are going to be a million times worse if you do, then you more than likely will know, and you'll have the knowledge of boundaries and know that you should set boundaries, but something inside of you will prevent you from being able to set the boundaries that you need to set to have a healthy life. So that's the common advice that's out there. It's very, very good advice, but if your unconscious mind feels that it will not be safe setting boundaries, that if you say no, that you'll be worse off because it will be met with punishment, then you won't set the boundaries. So that's what I mean when I say there's more work to be done. There are more inner wounds that need healing so that you feel safe, first of all, within yourself, and then taking that safety and expressing it, connecting it with other relationships that you have. And then at number 6, the next step is to attune with your feelings. Well, if you were raised by a narcissistic mother, you were highly tuned into her feelings. And that's the feeling that you're always walking around on eggshells. Because if you were not aware of that narcissistic mother's feelings and you came in all happy, hey, Mom, I just had the best day, and she has had the worst day, and she's not going to let you be happy if she's not happy. So you were systematically trained to ignore your feelings, to shut them out, to shut them down, to put them on hold, and even fear or hate your own feelings, because your feelings, especially happy, good ones, were a direct threat to the narcissistic parent because they likely conflicted what they wanted with what they needed, with what they believed and what they demanded. So it was not okay, and it was not safe for you to have an amazing day at school, have a great time with your friends, and then come home and share that with the narcissistic mother or the narcissistic parent, because in that dynamic and in that relationship, the only thing that matters to them are their feelings and their wants, their desires and their needs, and everyone else's were outright crushed. They were shamed. They received rage, they received attack, they received ridicule. So one of the most important things that you can do to yourself on this journey to healing, and that's why this is the first part of my Transforming Past Pain to Present Power program, is reconnecting with those feelings and being able to identify those feelings, feel them, name them, experience them, and translate them. Because oftentimes, if we have a good feeling, then we have a really bad feeling right after, because we've learned it's not safe to have a good feeling. We still have this reaction to, if I have a good feeling, then I'm going to be attacked. I'm going to be met with rage and shame and ridicule and anger. So let me put that good feeling away and let me just hold on to this bad feeling. And we become really, really, really good at doing that, so much so that it happens automatically. So switching that around, reprogramming and rewiring that so the automatic feeling is the good feeling, and it's okay and safe to feel that and experience that. And not to say that you'll never ever have a negative feeling or thought or belief ever again, but to quickly turn that over and turn it around and not take it personally, not hold on to it. So most narcissists, pretty much all, but I can't say all, majority of narcissists will constantly project their own bankrupt emotions onto others and blame others and accuse others for their own abusive behavior. And at first, you may not even be aware of what's going on, especially if you were raised by a narcissistic mother, because you don't know anything else. That is your life and your experience. And you become brainwashed to believe that it's your fault and that you did something wrong. So part of this journey to healing is learning to just see your feelings and leave them there and not judge them. Feelings are feelings, thoughts are thoughts, but you are not your feelings, you are not your thoughts. But again, that's a process. And then seeing them and feeling them with love, with gratitude, with appreciation for what they're there to teach you about yourself. So tuning into your feelings. And then not blaming yourself. And this is a really, really hard step for most people. Again, it is one that takes practice, that takes repetition, to not blame yourself. Don Miguel Ruiz in his 4 agreements says to not take anything personally. And that is why it's one of the steps to healing as well, to not blame yourself, especially if you were scapegoated in the relationship with your family. Then you are likely to you're likely to automatically blame yourself. Blaming yourself gets stuck on autopilot. You automatically feel guilt for things beyond your control or beyond your responsibility. And narcissists are experts at deflecting and projecting blame onto others. If they're enraged at you when you stand up for yourself, or if you pointed out the things that they did wrong, then they attacked you. And then you get that met tenfold, that anger, that rage. It gets projected onto you tenfold. So oftentimes you learn to just shut up because it feels safer than triggering that narcissist. And so, of course, anytime they do go off, you begin to blame yourself for something that was actually not your responsibility or your fault to begin with. So that's the next step in the part of this healing journey, is to not blame yourself and then stop hurting yourself. So many people who are raised by a narcissistic mother or father, they turn that projected anger, rage, and resentment from the narcissist inward and onto themselves. And then they hurt themselves. They inflict in self-harming behaviors. And it starts with our thoughts. We have self-harming thoughts. And that can make us feel completely numb, physically numb, emotionally numb, and lead to patterns of self-abuse. And like I said, that can be with food, that can be with alcohol, that can be with intercourse, that can be through relationships, it can be through physical self-harm, physical self-punishment, substance abuse, addictions to other things. There are so many things that people engage in that hurt themselves, all in the name of just trying to feel and trying to process that emotional and psychological trauma that you've endured by being raised by that narcissistic mother or parent. So looking at your own patterns of addiction and self-harm to see what they are, identify them, again, be aware of them and accept them, and then choose to take action to break out of those patterns. But in order to do that, you have to change your beliefs at the unconscious level. Otherwise, you're going to stay stuck in those self-harming patterns for a really long time. And that's exactly, again, what we get to in my Transforming Past Pain to Present Power program. So the next steps, 9 and 10. 9 is be aware of your attraction with narcissists. Be aware. So, like I said before, to add further injury to injury, many children, adult children now of narcissists, are vulnerable. You were vulnerable when you were a child, and you were modeled these really unhealthy, toxic, abusive relationship patterns. And then you end up inevitably being attracted to that same type of personality and that same dynamic and that same role play in adult relationships. So whether it be friends or bosses or partners. So pay attention. That is why the first step is to educate yourself about narcissism and be aware of your attraction with narcissists. Don't go out and just go, oh, I'm just going to start dating again, and I'm just going to go opposite of the last one because they are wolf in sheep's clothing. So you may think, oh, on the outside, they're so different, but they're actually wolf in sheep's clothing, and the sheep can change its clothing. So they can change their name, they can change their location, they can change their occupation. So be aware of your attraction with narcissists. Otherwise, you're just going to go out and attract another one if you don't heal your inner traumas and your inner unhealed wounds and reprogram your unconscious mind to be attracted to what in the beginning may be seemed as boring, and to truly, truly love, accept, appreciate, honor, and adore yourself, so that you're not looking for that externally in a relationship and going out there with an empty cup and thinking in the love bombing phase that narcissist is filling your cup, because they're not. You got to fill your own cup first. You have to love yourself before you can ever be loved truly by another person. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You find yourself in the same pattern. And then honoring your feelings about your narcissistic parent. You are going to process a lot as you go through this journey. The second part to my program is healing from within. And this is where this really, really comes into play, is honoring your feelings about the narcissistic parent. This is a parent that, yes, they were horrible to you, but you still desire their love. You still desire their acceptance. You still desire for them to say and mean, and for you to believe when they say, I love you, I accept you, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? And chances are You'll never get that from them. So to honor your feelings about that narcissistic parent, most of us love our parents no matter what. Most of us, even if we had really, really horrible parents, we still are connected with them. We still desire for them to love us unconditionally the way that we've always wanted to feel loved. We still desire that validation from them. And that's oftentimes what so many people will spend a lifetime seeking. That narcissistic parent does not have the ability or capability to love unconditionally the way that everyone deserves to be loved, because they do not love themselves unconditionally. And that inability to love themselves unconditionally was projected onto their children, was projected onto you if you were raised by one. And so they are incapable of that. But that is what the heart and the soul craves and longs for and desires. And you're never going to get it in that relationship with that narcissistic parent. And so it's holding sacred and safe space to honor your feelings about the narcissistic parent, to process that, to feel those feelings until they no longer not need to be felt, so that you're not numbing them or avoiding them or pretending that they're not there, and not judging yourself for having those feelings, honoring them and letting them be your guide in how you choose to interact with your family. If that means going no contact, going no contact. And feeling good about that decision to go no contact, not going no contact because someone told you that you had to in order to heal. You don't have to, but you need to honor your feelings in order to heal. It doesn't mean that you have to go no contact. Some people choose to, and some people choose to have really, really firm and healthy boundaries with that narcissistic parent, and learn to not take those things personally, and understand and truly know that their inability, that narcissistic parent's inability to love them unconditionally, is not a reflection of who they are. So honoring that. And then the next step, I like this term, treating yourself for narcissistic fleas. So children who were raised by a narcissistic mother or parent are likely to pick up what are called narcissistic tics or narcissistic fleas. And they sometimes become full-blown narcissists themselves. I hear that all the time. You know, I want to help my brother. I want to help my sister. Like, I didn't turn out to be a narcissist, but my mom was. And now my sister is a narcissist. She's just like my mother. And it really hurt. My heart hurts for her because I want to help her. Well, I mean, they were modeled and they learned that, and they took on those traits and behaviors, and now they've become that. But a lot of these things, if you feel like, well, maybe I'm the narcissist because I do some of those things too, taking a look at yourself, what triggers you, and understanding and knowing that those triggers are teachers, and that if you have those triggers and you choose to go deeper and dive into them and learn about what they're there to teach you, and heal those inner unhealed wounds, and heal those places within you that are having you project those things like anger and rage, and, you know, identifying within yourself your own patterns and habits and behaviors. Are you constantly, you know, seeking control or attention outside of yourself? Do you guilt people into doing things for you? Are you someone who manipulates others to get what you want? It doesn't mean if you do that you are a narcissist, but it does mean that you're trying to get something external to fill, mask, or cover something that's unhealed internally. So, or maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum. Maybe you're very, very sensitive to other people's feelings, and you identify that you're an empath or you're a codependent, and you attract those narcissists. You're the people pleaser, you're the fixer. Well, the person that you need to please is yourself. The person that you need to fix is yourself. And when you do that and you heal yourself, then you project that healing out, then you project that love and that acceptance out to others. And that is the only way to change anyone else, is to begin by changing yourself. The best revenge is a life well lived. The best revenge is sweet success, and the best revenge is healing yourself. So regardless of how you were raised, regardless of whether your mother was a narcissist, whether your mother hated you, whether she actually just hated herself, sadly, and especially if you have children, this is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself and for your children, is to heal yourself, because we're always modeling, we're always teaching, we're always saying that this is life, right? We grow up believing that this is life and this is the way it is. But if you were raised by a narcissistic parent and you had another parent or another person in that position that was an enabler, understand all the things that you took on, and then do the inner work to let go, to release them, and to heal yourself, to make your life a better place for you, to love your life. Just because you had a really, really crazy upbringing does not mean that you have a crazy, crazy ending. You are in control of your destiny. Your actions determine and dictate the outcome of your life, but those come from the thoughts that you have, and those thoughts are developed from the beliefs that you have. So if you really truly want to quickly change this and transform your life, you got to start in the right place. And that is with the inner beliefs that you have about yourself. And again, those are unconscious. You can't just like, oh, I believe that I'm lovable and repeat that affirmation or mantra, because if your inner mind says, no, you didn't remember all those times, even if you don't remember anything, they're still stored in there. Your mind's like Google. It's like a filing system machine. All those experiences that you had from 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, all the way upward, those are the foundation that you have now. So getting rid of those old corrupted files in your mind that say you are unworthy of this, you're undeserving of that, to make space and room for the things that you deserve and desire in life, that is what it's all about. So when you're ready to take that journey, then I would love to guide you through it. Again, you can find more information. I have a free training on all of this that's in the description below this video. So make sure to sign up for that and check that out, and join us inside Transforming Past Pain to Present Power. All right, guys, until then, if you're raised with a narcissistic mother, know that you are going to have an incredible, phenomenal life if you choose to take the next steps to healing, because that was all her. That had nothing to do with you. And this is about identifying and reconnecting with you, the real you, the true you, the you that you were put here to be, not that projected image of your toxic mother. So, all right, guys, that is all for today. Let me hit pause over here. I had to bend to move to see the camera. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting with you again very soon.